Hey everyone, it's Kim and welcome back. And if you're new to this channel, hello to Bookmarks and Breadsticks. Welcome back to Bookmarks and Breadsticks. If you're new to my channel, I focus on everything in the nonfiction culinary universe, everything in food writing, food history, world and travel, and a little bit of dabbling in science and nature and environmentalism where the worlds interact. I am here today to give you a suggested 5 easy entry point books for the world of food writing. If you haven't already seen our update, the Feasting Females announced on July 10th that we will be hosting in August the Book Buffet Read-Along. I will link it for you in the cards above and in the description below. And this is a really fun readathon and read-along, readathon, whichever you want to call it. But I'm really excited to introduce this readathon with the hopes that people start to read more of food writing and in the culinary nonfiction universe. But it can be a little intimidating. So here are 5 books that I think are approachable, but also have adaptations that you can stream and watch online on Netflix. First and foremost, the buddy read for the book buffet is Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain. This book is, Anthony Bourdain is a hero. He is a culinary icon who unfortunately passed away by suicide a couple of years ago. But it was this book that really brought to life what happens behind the doors of the kitchen. I'll read the back for you. A deliciously funny, delectably shocking banquet of wild but true tales of the life in the culinary trade from Chef Anthony Bourdain, laying out his more than a quarter century of drugs, sex, and haute cuisine, now with an all-new, never-before published material. I love Anthony Bourdain's voice. He has a very powerful and unique voice. Anthony Bourdain, he originally was the executive chef at Brasserie Les Halles in New York City, but he went on with this unique voice that he had. He really stepped away from the kitchen and started to... He hosted a show, No Reservations. He had a different show called The Layover. And then with CNN, he did have the wonderful show Parts Unknown. You can watch Parts Unknown on Netflix. You can also get a hold, I believe, of No Reservations and The Layover on Netflix, if not on Hulu. So this is the book that started it all. Now, I will admit that when this came out, this was wild and sexy, and it made chefs look really cool and badass. Think tattoos, piercings, etc. There are elements of this book that did not age well, especially when the Me Too movement came and the reckoning came for the culinary world. There's a lot in here, and Bourdain acknowledges this, and he also acknowledges it in future books. This is the first. He has many about the treatment of women in the kitchen, the treatment of minorities in the kitchen, of different races, ethnicities, and etc. So, go into this understanding that even Anthony Bourdain himself acknowledged that this wasn't right and wasn't great. And later in his life and in his later works, actually Anthony Bourdain takes a lot of big steps to help reverse and make positive impact in the world, in the culinary world especially. But this is the first recommendation for book buffet reading materials. It is our read along. And you can also, if you want, go watch an episode or 2 on Netflix and see how Anthony Bourdain has this ability to very fluidly move across mediums. If you're an audiobook person as well, Anthony Bourdain narrated all of his audiobooks. I think you can get it on Audible, but I would recommend supporting either Libby or working through Scribed. But all of Anthony Bourdain's books are his. They are in his voice. We are also giving away 1 copy of Anthony Bourdain's most recent book, which was finished by his longtime assistant, Laurie, Wolever. We're actually giving away a copy of the newest book that came out, which is World Travel and a Reverent Guide. I will actually be reading this for the Book Buffet Readathon because I haven't finished it yet. But this is our buddy read, and this is the prize. So I recommend you try with this. Second book I would recommend is really short. This book comes in under 200 pages, and this is The Garlic Papers by Stanley Crawford. Stanley Crawford is a co-owner with his wife of El Bosque Garlic Farm in Dixon, New Mexico. This is a David versus Goliath kind of story, where Stanley Crawford decides to question U.S. tariff exemptions for the country's largest importer of Chinese garlic. This set off a massive legal battle, pitting his small New Mexico farm against the importer and its international law firms. In this compelling account of the David and Goliath battle, now in its 5th year, Crawford describes his personal and farming life under a cloud of lawsuits and administrative skirmishes. This unusual case was of such interest, it became subject of a Netflix documentary, Garlic Breath, in the 6-part series Rotten, released in 2018. So I actually read this book and then went and watched the episode in the series Rotten. And I think that, again, this is a really great way. This is a very short book. You could probably read this maybe 1 to 2 days, under 200 pages. But I think this is a moment where do we as consumers, especially Americans, think about where our food is coming from. And you think of these you learn about Crawford and this small farmer who's trying to fight against a large importer of Chinese garlic that is essentially dumping the product into America, undercutting prices where small farmers can't survive and make a living. I also found that the team had a lot of humor, dark humor, when it came to the documentary episode that focuses on Crawford and this case. So this is another example. You can get Rotten on Netflix. I believe it's also listed on Amazon Prime. There are other episodes. Again, Rotten is a 6-part documentary. You can watch the 1 episode, 1 part, all about the garlic papers. Now, it wouldn't be fair for an entryway to food writing to not mention the infamous Julie and Julia. This is obviously a very well-known movie with Amy Adams playing Julie and Julia Child being played by the great and amazing, I forgot her name, Meryl Streep. Duh. Wow, I'm awful. Honestly, if you probably know the movie. I did a whole review of Julie and Julia, comparing the movie and some of the trade-offs that the movie takes versus the source material. So I think if you liked Julie and Julia, give the book a read, because this is a lot richer. There are some really great side characters, or actually friends in her life, since it is a memoir, that get cut because of time restrictions for the movie. I highly, highly recommend reading this. So this is definitely in the memoir food writing space. Garlic Papers is more of food and politics. And Kitchen Confidential is part memoir, part culinary underbelly, what goes on in the kitchen, what goes on behind the scenes. Next is actually the most recent food series I have seen come to Netflix. I recommend the book High on the Hog, A Culinary Journey from Africa to America by Dr. Jessica B. Harris. If you don't know who Jessica B. Harris is, she is an author of 11 cookbooks documenting the foods and foodways of the African diaspora. She is in her 70s, and she is considered the matriarch of mapping out that African diaspora, how food came along through the slave trades. And Netflix just released their series, High on the Hog. I've watched the first 2 episodes and I've already been blown away. I am definitely going to do a review of that show and the book together. I've actually reviewed the book before, and I have read Dr. Harris's memoir. I don't own any of her cookbooks yet. They're a little harder for me to get a hold of at a used or refurbished price. But she is considered a culinary icon. She is a multiple-time James Beard Award winner, and she narrates her own books if you want to listen to them by audiobooks. So, episode 1 of the Netflix show, Dr. Harris is in the episode. This is not something where she just signed on as an executive producer. It is also one of the few, if only, culinary shows available I've seen globally that is focusing on African diaspora and cuisine. There have totally been Food Network stars that are Black chefs. There have totally been episodes and winners of Top Chef that are cast members of Top Chef that are of color. But this is the first time I've seen content specifically about this food diaspora on a major platform such as Netflix. And I'm really, really excited. So this book, it's so well researched. And then the shows, it's a series. you get to go and see the worlds that are described in the book, see the places described in this book, and it's just so fantastic. I have loved it, and I'm taking my time. It's not a show I can binge because each episode is so poignant and impactful, and I'm really, really excited to continue on. So review coming soon on this one, but I still recommend you go watch it. And if you are currently watching it, let me know in the comments below if you have a favorite episode. I am just so, so excited. I really, really recommend you guys read this one or listen to it because, again, Dr. Harris narrates the book herself, which I love it when authors narrate their work. And the final book to round out 5 intro books to the food writing space for Book Buffet. This one doesn't actually have a Netflix adaptation, but this is The Best of American Food Writing in 2020, edited by Kenji Lopez Alt, who is the author of The Food Lab. This is essentially the best of food writing. Think of it, if you want a comparison, it's like nonfiction short stories. It's essays. And I love these kinds of anthologies because I'm not currently paying for a New York Times subscription and an Eater subscription and a Bon Appetit subscription or the San Francisco Chronicle. I get to learn about new authors, especially diverse voices in these books. And in the last 2 years, I have really seen a push for more diverse voices. It's not just the old white token man restaurant critic. There's so many more interesting things going on in here. And if you're new to the food writing space and you want to participate, I think these are great books because you can read one essay and come back to it later. Read an essay and then go read a fantasy book. Read an essay or two and then come back, go to your favorite comfort zone sci-fi book. I also like the 2019 edition of this was edited by Samin Nosrat. You might know her from Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat. You can watch Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat on Netflix. Also, she helped the chef Michael Pollan, not the chef. Michael Pollan is a famous food writer, just a writer in general who talks about the nature space, the food space. And when he was working on his book Cooked, it was actually Samin who taught him how to cook. And Cooked is also a show on Netflix. I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent. I'm realizing now there are so many Netflix shows I could recommend in the food space that I might have to make a whole separate video just about that. There are definitely episodes of Chef's Table that involve chefs that I have loved that then went on to buy their books. A great example of that, I actually read Black, White, and the Gray by Masha Mabali and Mr. Morisano, and I read it because I really loved the episode of Black where the Gray was featured on Chef's Table. Unfortunately, I didn't enjoy the book that much, but there's lots of crossovers that are happening. And if you guys want more recommendations of TV shows that pair with books or pair with famous chefs or influencers, let me know in the comments below. Like, for example, Padma Lakshmi now has her show Taste of a Nation. She is still the host of Top Chef, but she also has a memoir and tons of cookbooks. Anyway, I could keep rambling on, but this is 5 books that are great entries into the food writing space, covering different subgenres. I gave you one that's about, food and policy. I gave you a memoir. I gave you a look in the underbelly. I gave you food history and food diaspora and short stories and essays. Let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these amazing books, and let me know if you're participating in Book Buffet. If you're looking for someone to buddy read with, I am more than happy and willing to read with you as well. And if you haven't already, make sure you hit like and subscribe. And if you want to see what I'm reading in real time and what's going on with the Read It and Eat subscription box, I do recommend you hop over to my Instagram, and that's where you're going to see the most live and up-to-date details. I hope you're well. Wear a mask, get vaccinated if you can, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.